that leaves me with this. What does creative writing, dancing, MMA fighting, and the World Cup all have in common? The common factor is me. Hello, and welcome back to Late Night Clarity with Claire, me, your host. I am also joined by Bagel. This is Bagel, a new little pet shop that I was gifted, and she's going to accompany us on the little stool that I have the camera set up on. And I am also with Blahaj, however that is pronounced. I did look up on YouTube how to pronounce blue shark in Swedish. I don't know if I got that right. You may be noticing that there is still sunlight out here, and this series is dependent on it being late night. Now, to be fair, it is 7:25 p.m. and it is summer. So it's the evening, it's not that late, but when you live really far up north, the sun is still out. So we're using my blackout curtains to create some atmosphere and hopefully give off the vibes that it's nighttime. Anyways, this episode of Late Night Clarity, technically, I started formulating these reflections late at night for the past couple of weeks. So that leaves me with this. What does creative writing, dancing, MMA fighting, and the World Cup all have in common? The common factor is me. Now, why these handful of seemingly random things? Why do they go together? Well, the common factor is parts of myself that I have given up on throughout my life, all coming together this Mercury retrograde to make me realize that I have been suppressing some pretty major parts of myself. Whether that is by choice, subconsciously, by external factors, just those parts of my identity have completely left my body for many, many years, and it's all coming up now. So I'm gonna get into it. I'm gonna tell you why this all matters to me right now. It all started last year around August, I believe, like August, July, August, September. I don't know. Those months kind of seem to merge into one part of a season to me. I watched a women's MMA fighting championship broadcasted on Netflix. I've never been much of a sports fan or been knowledgeable of any of those types of physical fitness events and been a fan. Those types of things have never really been on my radar. Anyway, I saw these two women. Well, it was actually multiple women, different rounds, fighting each other. I was locked in for all, what was it, 2 hours, 3 hours maybe? 2 to 3 hours that it was streaming live on Netflix. I could not peel my eyes off of that screen at all. I was so shocked. I was so surprised at myself that I found it incredibly invigorating and like almost I was so excited and I felt so empowered just from watching women use their bodies like that and fight and be strong. I was so inspired and I was absolutely hooked. And that summer I had gone on a trip to New York. My Uber driver from the airport started having a conversation with me about MMA, women's fighting, championship stuff. And it was an ongoing conversation about, I think, like how his sister used to fight or whatever. Anyway, all of that is just, that's when like those fitness, physical empowering, invigorating energy started sort of culminating for me was about a year ago. And fast forward to now, it's for the past year, I have been gradually engaging more in like being a fan or a viewer of women's fighting. And it's just come up a lot more in conversation over and over again. And I kept wondering why. It's possibly it's because I've become more aware of it and I'm more of a fan. I recently was on the plane from LA all the way back to home. I was having a horrible, 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 just the worst travel day you can possibly imagine trying to get back home from LA. So essentially, once I got onto the plane, I ended up having a pretty serendipitous experience, having multiple hours long conversation with the person I was sat next to, assigned to sit next to. And it was also my first time flying in a premium. It was not first class, it was a step down from that, but it was definitely above flying coach. Anyway, in this multiple hours long conversation that I found really just refreshing, enlightening to be able to strike up a conversation with a complete stranger. Truly, I think there is something really beautiful about being able to have conversations with strangers and find dis- discover new things about yourself that had you not ever had that very specific type of space where you're willing to talk about things don't normally talk about simply because you're talking with someone completely unfamiliar and it brings that outside of you is such a profound experience. And through my conversation, we started talking about MMA fighting, boxing, UFC, mental health, the world, honestly, all of the above. And I kept on asking myself, what am I supposed to learn from this conversation? Honestly, the way that I just walk through the world is truly with the mindset that I am always learning from my experiences and from life. So everything has meaning to me, and I'm constantly searching for the reason why something happens. Within this conversation that I had with this airplane stranger, um, I started discovering that there has to be a connection between the excitement for embodied movement that just keeps on popping up into my life. Because why do these conversations continue to happen? One thing that this airplane stranger told me in reflecting upon what I have been sharing with them, something along the lines of, it sounds like you are so active intellectually, mentally. Like I'm always in my head and I keep that part of myself completely active, and I use my brain so much. I'm very mentally involved, and I honor that part of myself. Whereas it seems like my literal body is wanting more from me. In a nice way, putting it as like, you seem like you're not using your body enough, and that you're essentially, my soul, my being wants me to become more active. Um, and, there's a possibility that maybe that could look like me getting back into martial arts. And that, a lot of things really stuck with me from the conversation that I had with this airplane stranger. Um, but the one that I really want to share the most is that realization that indeed, that is honestly a very fair assessment of myself. That I am very mentally and intellectually involved, and I exercise that part of myself so much, and I don't exercise my body the same way that I do my mind. I think I blame my chronic illnesses a lot for feeling incredibly discouraged to use my body the way that I used to be able to. When I was younger, I was very active. I was super involved in physical activities. I mean, I've been to sports camp. Um, I was a ballet dancer for many years. I did modern jazz, hip hop dancing. I took that very seriously. I used to do taekwondo. I did gymnastics. I did cheerleading. I was so physically involved until I got pretty severely injured doing ballet. And since then, honestly, I've been really afraid to use that part of myself again. Going into my 20s, my chronic illnesses started really amping up, and my body has taken notice of that, and it's a lot harder to move my body without pain and without consequences. I'm sort of at this moment where I'm realizing that I've given up a lot. I've given up on myself, and I've given up a lot of things that I used to do for myself. And honestly, one of them being physically involved and nurturing myself that way. I would love to start moving again in and figure out what that looks like for me. Sometimes I have these strong urges to just run or to get up and start dancing. And when I see people moving their bodies, it's just so like, gosh, I really want to do that. And that's where, dancing and the FIFA World Cup comes in. I have become a football fan. I am a proud football fan now. Watching the World Cup matches, getting so excited about watching people use their bodies. Like, you can run, you're kicking things, your heart rate is getting up, and you're feeling just that like exercise high. It's so energizing to watch people step into that very human element of like I said, just completely embodied in movement. And so that's why I really, really love soccer. I'm honestly looking forward to possibly attending a soccer game in the future, following it regularly, just like I do with women's MMA fighting, and really start dancing again. And that leads me to the other part. Why does physical movement have anything to do with creative writing? The common factor there, once again, is giving up on things, giving up on myself, giving up on my interests. I used to be an incredibly involved story writer. Ever since I was young, my mom always encouraged me and my siblings to heavily engage with our imagination, and we were always reading books. We were always encouraged to write our own stories. And so I used to write my own stories literally all of the time. For a while, writing books was kind of like, yeah, I'm totally going to do that. I see myself doing that idea that I had for myself for a really long time. And I have these moments where sometimes it's like those moments where you dig up your old journals and your old sketchbooks, and you just, spend a couple of hours on the floor looking through all of your old things, pieces, artworks, pieces that you wrote, and sort of get transported into this bubble of time traveling and seeing who you were, what you were up to, what was important to you, and what you created out of it. Every now and then I'll look at some of the old creative writing stories that I wrote when I was younger, and I sort of had these moments of, really deep sadness of like, what I wrote wasn't actually that bad. And I would love to, as a reader, know what happens next. A big part of my personal identity struggles is perfectionism and criticism from authority figures. Um, I am an overachiever, I am a perfectionist, and that is something that I will forever be working on. In previous videos, I've talked about how that has prevented me from starting or finishing things and feeling like what I'm making is good enough. And the truth is, nothing will ever be good enough, and I have to learn how to be okay with that. Because honestly, being okay with that is good enough. So I stopped writing when I received a really detrimental grade on a creative writing piece that I worked really hard on, poured my heart and soul into, and yeah, I received some pretty intense criticism. That was in high school, and from that day, I literally vowed that I would never write creatively again. I have written countless research papers, essays, scientific reports for all of these other STEM classes that I have done. I have excelled at those. I'm proud of those, but I have never let myself since then write about the stories that I have. You know, maybe you can relate if you're somebody who's really sensitive to feedback and who's a perfectionist and really strives hard to be good enough in anything that you do. Let me know if any of you have completely dropped something you were intensely passionate about and was a big part of your life that you just dropped because sharing that ended up hurting. That being said, Mercury retrograde is coming to an end as I am currently filming this video. And I think the biggest lessons that I have learned is to reassess why I gave up on certain things that felt once very amazing to me. I'm starting to get a little emotional. And if you're struggling with this too, then I truly hope that listening to my experiences helps awaken something in you as well. I really hope that we get through this and we can do it and we can reincorporate these pieces of ourselves back into our daily lives. And that is something that I hope to do in the very near future. So that is all for today's episode of Late Night Clarity. Thank you for spending your time with me. And I really hope some of this resonates with you guys. And yeah, till next time. Bye.